So, how do you develop SOPs in your marketing agency? Well, the big mistake a lot of owners make, a lot of companies make, is they say, "Oh, let's start just documenting everything," and that gets you into what I would call SOP hell. And that could bog you down. And so, I want to give you a system of how to think about and produce these in an iterative way. Now, over time, everything will be documented. But I can tell you this from experience, by the time you get everything documented, there's changes that have to be made. And what I want you to think about are these high-level concepts you want to educate people on. And this is just like the easiest, fastest way. So think about the high-level concepts that you want to educate people on before you get into the process. So for example, what is the difference between performance marketing and brand marketing? Pretty high level stuff. Then you start with the highest level frequency processes that support that high level things. And these are things that you need to repeat all the time. So like running a marketing campaign. So you see how those two fit together? Oh, we're performance marketing. I need to know about performance marketing and brand marketing. Now I need to run a campaign. Next, focus on maybe the highest risk success where people make mistakes and that could cost you things. And then finally, just prioritize the highest friction level process where teams get stuck. So if you think about those last two, highest risk in running a marketing campaign, well, the highest risk is you don't have core messaging, you don't have good brand messaging, a good call to action in the campaign. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. And if you're off kilter, you might not get the results that you want in that campaign. Highest friction in the process typically is, okay, we have a core message. We have that thought out. Where do we produce content? How does that all work together? And maybe we write a blog, or maybe we post on LinkedIn, or maybe we send an email, or maybe we do like, where do we put it all? How does it all work together? So later in this video, I'm going to walk you through an abridged version of how to create an SOP based on that example. But again, so think about the high level stuff that you have to educate people on. Take something that you do frequently that might have high risk to it and also high friction, meaning people and processes make mistakes during this thing that you need to make standard operating process procedure. Your goal is to not do all the documentation. Your goal is clarity on the process. So there might be, I'm going to give you some examples of what things you might want to do first. I give you a few: running a marketing campaign, the sales stages and process in your business, client onboarding, monthly reporting and review of your, the meetings you have with clients. It could be a content production process, definition of done for different delivery types. What does it mean to be done? Escalation rules, what's urgent versus what's important. So these are things you're trying to get clarity on. You're not trying to document everything under the sun. You're trying to get clarity on these things. What does it mean to run a successful marketing campaign? As an example, what do we do when we're trying to get monthly reporting out to clients? What is it that we include? How do we talk about it? Those types of things. So what do you want to do when you want to get starting building those SOPs? So first of all, pick one process that you repeat. Could be onboarding, could be launching an ad. It could be, how do you handle a sales discovery call and sales process? Then record yourself doing it on a Loom video, and I'll show you some of this cool stuff on Loom. And make sure you have decision points along the way of your process. And I'll go through all of this. Then what you first do is just turn it into a checklist. And it's not an essay. You don't have to write, just a simple checklist. Do this, 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 and this. And if it can be checked off, that's what you need to think about. It needs to be checked off. Now you can go way detailed. People, we did it a bunch of times. You go too far in detail, but a checklist. Now, fourth is you assign an owner. Who owns these pieces? Is it all one person? Is it three people? Making sure everybody sees that. It's a role, a person, a name specifically. And then what you want to do is where you see your name in it. So now I'm talking to you as owners or leaders. When you see your name in it, you need to find a replacement for your name. And then what you do is have people run it using this checklist and review the output and make sure people adhered to the checklist and see what did they do it correctly? What did they miss? That's first iteration number one. Can you guys follow this checklist for me when we're doing this thing, running a marketing campaign for our agency? We'll just start with us. I always start with us too, by the way. I always start internally with agencies before you roll it out to clients. Although, it all depends. It depends on where you're at and what you have in terms of SOPs internally. So then what you do is you repeat that cycle again and again and again until you have clarity from everybody about what process is for certain things that you want done. You can even have a checklist for all the SOPs you want to create over time in each of the 5 systems that you have in your agencies. That's a great way to do that, but it's an iterative approach. Don't try to create a bunch all at once. Just start with one. Okay, now I'm going to walk you through the process of creating a simple SOP document. And I just did this from scratch, and it's one that we've ran before. So I did it via memory, but that's kind of how you have to do it to start with anyway, if you're a business owner. Remember, the whole idea is to get clarity on this process in an iterative way. So the one that I'll show you here in a bit is running a client monthly content campaign. And all I did was list out the steps, the assets we needed to produce, and created it in a simple document for a checklist. And so I'll show you that here in a minute. But remember, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time out as you're starting to develop these things. The tendency, and this is where the trap is, the tendency is to get into every little minute detail of the process. And like, well, it doesn't have this part because this part needs to go to that part. And don't get caught up in that. When you're doing it, just make sure you understand the purpose of the process, the purpose of the process you're creating the checklist for, and do your best to assign an owner. Now, what you'll see in mine is role based. Now, if you get to a point where you know the person's name, that's great. But what you really want to start out with is what role is doing this. I didn't put any due dates here. We can talk about that when I review it. But the reason why you put your role next to the item in the checklist is because when you're developing systems, people can move in and out of different roles, and you want to make it possible. If I said, hey, this step in this SOP belongs to Tony, and as that iteration goes, it's what if Tony's not in that role anymore or not there anymore? Well, who does this now? Is it Tony? No, it's the role who does it. So hopefully what you'll see in this checklist is a set of stages and a set of checklists that make it clear this is how we deliver a client monthly content campaign. Okay, here we go. So here's the monthly content campaign. Now I produce this in about 20 minutes, just thinking through it. So it might not be perfect, but I'm going from memory. Someone who knows the process. That's the people or person that needs to produce the checklist. You know the process. And remember, the whole goal here is clarity on this particular process, monthly content campaigns. Build unique brand authority on key business topics related to, pick the industry this is for. Is it your agency? Or is it a client's company? But with repeatable content production process using HubSpot. Now, this happens to be using HubSpot. And so I broke it out into strategy, webinar campaign assets, or I could just say campaign assets. The reason why I said webinars, because in this particular case, we finish the month with a webinar. And that's kind of the culmination of all this. So all of this stuff leads up to a webinar. And I'll go through this in a sec. But, and then what do I do in this certain system using HubSpot campaigns? I believe they call it Campaign Studio now. So again, do it as quickly as possible by memory, as fast as you can. And I also assigned an owner. I'll talk to you about the due dates. You can get real specific, or you can say, week 0, or in this case, define webinar ideal attendee topic and benefits to the attendees. That's something that the client strategist does with the client. You can even, say client. I try to put one name on that. But due date, this actually happens the week prior to the month of this campaign. So at the time of this, it's February 12th. So it would have been January, the last week in January, we would have had that conversation. Same with the webinar packet. This happens the end of that, right towards the end of the month, beginning of that first week of the month. So first week of February. By the way, February is a short month. All of the webinars are done at the last Tuesday of every month. And there's a practice session. In fact, I forgot that one thing. There's a practice session the last Monday of every month prior. So we always do a practice session. And so I want to put that in here. Create Zoom webinar registration link and insert row below. And this is how easy you do it. Now, a lot of people do this on spreadsheets too. That way they just keep it, create practice Zoom webinar registration link. And this is consultant. So, you could do it by weeks when you're first starting out. So now I'm not going to go through all of these, but you create email, you LinkedIn posts, you interview the client, you edit and create the video. There's a design element. Now we want to get to a point where this is just grabbing some templates, depending on how that works, or you're creating a new design. But going through this with my team, there are a lot of things like, well, what do we put in the invitation? What do we do that? Well, there's a webinar packet that contains all the copy with the and in this case, it's I use Sakura as an example, but marketing, that's a client, marketing Copilot agent. Or you can have a person write this, but we've built a Copilot agent with about 3 or 4 years worth of process and information. And essentially it's a marketing wizard for this particular client that I was thinking of. But it could be a person spending time doing that. You're going to have to, when you create the webinar packet as a strategist, it's going to create the copy for all the assets, because that's what you're programming it to do. So, but you also have to go in and edit it. You have to have human led, but human intervention. You have to go in and read, did it produce all of the things that, you could even put, insert one below, and you could say, so this is where you could get crazy with how many of these tasks you do. Q, C, webinar packet, copy. Which is a step. So see how you kind of add as you go along? I mean, I added 2 of these as we went along. But now, if you sat down with the strategist, with the consultant, with the VA, and you went over this process, you would have the bulk of it figured out. You'd have clarity on it. And if you didn't, you would have questions. But now you have a process, including this video that I'm recording, that you would record once you build this, going through each of these steps. Like, okay, we're in the strategy phase. This is what we're doing, and here's who's responsible, but here's why we do this. Here's all these campaign assets. Why do I have to create a Zoom webinar? What information do I need? So you can record all of that if you're the person that knows this process, and you can attach that recording to this SOP, maybe at each stage. And that adds extra to it. Ultimately, this gets all put into like a ClickUp or Asana or a Teamwork, some project management software that has templated task lists and subtask lists. And you create this, and now when you roll this out, this is repeatable. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Over time, you'll get to the point where you'll have a video for each one of these tasks, if you can believe it. And then those tools, project management software tools, they also store those as templates, so you can easily add those to projects when you sign a client up for this. Hey, I just sold this content production process for, $2,800 a month. Here's what's included. You could also get into the point where you're looking at performance expectations on, what would happen because you delivered this content and campaign. Obviously, in this case, they're wanting people to go to a webinar. This webinar could be a podcast, the email invites, whatever the process is. The person who knows the most about it, get it down quickly and get it into a checklist. If you don't have one of those, this is step 1. This is the first thing that you do. This could be an onboarding process, a new client onboarding process. It could be a monthly billing process. Whatever that process is, remember, if you're finding that people are in chaos and not able to do this process very well, or there's always mistakes being made, that's an indicator that, okay, let's look at SOP there. Let's look at creating a standard operating process or procedure for that. And that's all. That's really all. Between this and the video that I created, I'm probably an hour into this. And it's just something I did from memory. Once you get the first iteration of it done and you go over it with the people that are responsible for delivering, then have them run it, see what the output is, see what questions come up, see what kind of quality of the work that is done, see if you missed a step. And then, okay, great, document all that, get that, and update this. And get it to a point where the output you get from this process is the same every time, and the steps that are taken are the same every time, and every role in this process understands what they need to do when they need to do it, and what they're responsible for. All right, hope this helped. All right. So you've watched a lot of these videos. If you're here, hopefully I've got you thinking about the 5 systems you need to create in your business, how to generate SOPs in a simple way to get started. But what is the return you get when you systematize these parts of your business and these 5 systems? Well, first of all, you get predictable delivery, predictable outcomes. The success rate goes high, goes way high. You get consistency, no matter who's in the role. You should get better margins. Your leadership team should be functioning under less chaos. It's clear who's leading. You have an easy way to hire or a very focused way to hire, and your business can run without you or without your constant presence. That little, less birdies saying, give me information. How do you do this? How do you do that? Now they want to do a good job. So it's not about that. It's just, they don't have the information. They don't have the systems down to do that. And when you have these systems operating, these 5 systems, your business is going to be more valuable because it's going to run without you, or it's going to run with less of you, which gives you more freedom. Now you'll have to go find your next adventure, your next job when you scale, but that's the fun part. That's the whole point. Otherwise, you're on the same treadmill all the time. So stop being the chief firefighter, build out systems, get your team thinking about systems and helping you build those out. Because sometimes you get to a point where you have somebody else that's knowledgeable, that's not you, that needs to build that system. And so you need to give them a system to build systems, standard operating procedures. Start with those checklists. Okay. So if your agency is experiencing chaos, you're growing, but it's like, I'm not sure how this is working. Everything's chaotic. You seem successful, but one thing's for sure, the business is dependent on you too much, way too much. That's okay. It means you're pushing the limits. And so what I suggest, your very next step is start with one process, pick it, the process, create a checklist, review it with your team, and let that go be your first SOP or your next SOP. Pick the next process, start with that. You can have first iterations of a bunch of processes, or you can decide to pick one process and iterate until you have it perfected. Both can work. It just depends on what's going on, and turn that chaos into clarity and build out those 5 systems so that your business can scale. I hope this was really helpful for you. I had a fun time recording it, and let me know if you have any questions. You can hit me up at my email, tony@consultinguponus.com, tony@consultinguponus.com. And I'd be happy to share any more details with you that I have, templates that I have, examples. Would love to talk to you about that. Anyway, have a good one.